There's something about small towns. The kind of places where secrets rot slowly behind shutters that haven't been open in decades. Cypress Creek, Florida. Heavy air, heavier silences. The kind of place where everyone knows the rules, and no one talks about them. Because here, survival depends on obedience. Rule 1. If a car circles your block 3 times with no headlights, lock every door. Rule 2. If the gas station is open after midnight, never go inside. Rule 3. If someone says, "It's your turn now," don't ask what they mean. Just run. This isn't just another creepy story. This one sticks to your skin. Watch it to the end. Because the twist, waiting in the dark, it changes everything. And while you're here, tell me in the comments, which of the rules would you break first? Subscribe to Night Creepypasta Rules for stories that don't just haunt you. They warn you. The humidity in Cypress Creek doesn't just stick to your skin. It crawls inside your lungs, heavy with the scent of swamp rot and secrets you can almost taste on the back of your tongue. Driving back into town after everything fell apart up north, felt less like a homecoming and more like sinking into warm, stagnant water. The welcome sign, half swallowed by creeping vines and rust, listed a population number that felt optimistic, maybe even deliberately misleading. Houses sagged under the weight of the wet air and decades of quiet neglect, paint peeling like sunburned skin. Even the Spanish moss hanging thick from the ancient cypress trees seemed heavier here, gloomier like dusty shrouds waiting for occupants. My grandmother Eleanor's house was marginally better kept, mostly thanks to her relentless, silent pruning of the bougainvillea that threatened to consume the porch. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old paper, lavender, and something else, something vaguely metallic, like old blood scrubbed faint. She greeted me with a hug that felt brittle, her eyes, clouded with age, scanning mine for answers I didn't have. We didn't talk about the failed job, the evaporated savings, or why I was suddenly back in the place I'd sworn I'd escaped for good. Some silences in Cypress Creek are too deep to disturb. That first evening, settling into the too small guest room that still smelled faintly of my childhood self, Eleanor paused at the door. Her hand rested on the frame, fingers thin and knotted. "Best lock up tight after dark. Sarah dear," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "Doors, windows, all of them. It's just how things are done here. Always have." She didn't meet my eyes when she said it. There was no specific threat named, no reason given beyond habit, but a cold knot formed in my stomach, a feeling distinctly out of place in the oppressive heat. The next day, seeking a slice of the normalcy I remembered, I walked down to the diner. The bell above the door gave a tired jingle. Inside, the air conditioning hummed loudly, fighting a losing battle. Flies buzzed against the greasy windows overlooking Main Street's cracked pavement. Mateo was behind the counter, wiping it down with a slow, practiced motion. He broke into a wide grin when he saw me, a flash of the easygoing kid I grew up with. "Sarah Jenkins? Back in town? Didn't think we'd see you again." We talked while I picked at a plate of lukewarm fries. He caught me up on local gossip, who got married, who moved away, fewer than you'd think. The usual small-town churn. But when I mentioned how quiet things seemed, how watchful the town felt, his smile tightened. "Yeah, well," he shrugged, suddenly busy arranging napkin dispensers. "People mostly keep to themselves, stick to routines. It's safer that way." "Safer from what?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. He wouldn't elaborate, just offered me more coffee with eyes that darted towards the windows, walking back as dusk began to bleed purple and orange into the swampy horizon. The old rules surfaced in my mind unbidden, relics of childhood ghost stories, playground dares. If you see the same car circle the block 3 times without headlights, go inside and lock every door. I remember daring Billy Peterson to stay out after seeing old Mr. Abernathy's sedan do just that. Billy ended up crying behind the dumpster. If the gas station stays open past midnight, don't enter. We used to joke it was run by vampires, but nobody ever tested it. If a neighbor says, "It's your turn now," don't ask for what. That one always felt the coldest, the most nonsensical, yet somehow the most absolute. Just local legends, I told myself. Quirks of a town too close to the swamp, too far from everywhere else. Folklore meant to spook kids. That night, the heat refused to break. I stood by the guest room window, looking out at the overgrown yard, the dense wall of trees marking the swamp's edge just beyond. The cicadas buzzed, a deafening, electric thrum that seemed to vibrate in my teeth. Underneath it, the croak of frogs, a low, wet chorus. Then, another sound, or rather, the lack of one. The lack of one. An old, dark-colored sedan rolled slowly past the end of the driveway, its engine unnervingly quiet, almost silent. No headlights cut through the gathering dark. Odd, I thought. Maybe someone conserving battery. I watched it turn the corner at the end of the block. Minutes passed. The cicada's drone seemed to dip, falter for a second. My gaze drifted back to the street. And there it was again, the same car, moving at the same funereal pace. No lights. It reached the corner, turned, and disappeared again. My breath hitched. It was probably nothing. A coincidence. Someone lost. But standing there, bathed in the weak moonlight filtering through the Spanish moss, a primal chill traced its way down my spine, cold and sharp, despite the suffocating Florida heat. Folklore didn't feel so harmless anymore. That single sharp tap from inside the wall echoed in my thoughts long after Miller led us away. Evans kept glancing nervously at the concrete as we walked, but Miller acted as if nothing had happened, his face an impassive mask. Just pipe settling, I told myself. Old building, but the synchronized silence that preceded it felt deliberate, orchestrated, and the tap itself had felt personal. Days bled into the first week. H-Block operated on a rhythm of controlled tension. The sudden eruption of shouts quickly muffled, the heavy metallic report of cell doors slamming shut, the scrape and slide of food trays under bars, all underscored by the constant low hum electricity and surveillance. I learned the faces, the names, the monstrous legends attached to them. Thorne remained a silent statue in his cell. Miller remained a granite presence, observing, correcting, his expectations absolute. Evans tried to maintain a professional brightness, asking questions I'd already learned not to voice. Questions Miller usually answered with a grunt or a cold stare. Then came the drawing. Routine check, third tier. I was keying open a cell door for inspection. Evans standing back observing procedure, when my gaze snagged on the opposite wall inside. My breath hitched, sketched crudely in what looked like charcoal, rough but unmistakable, was a face. My face, distorted. Eyes too wide, mouth stretched in a silent, leering grin. The inmate, a gaunt man named Peters, convicted of dissecting his victims, sat on his bunk, watching me with unnerving, placid intensity. Ruler 1 slammed it to my head with visceral force. Face on the wall, paint over it immediately. A cold wave washed over me, prickling my skin. Violation. It felt like a physical touch, a claim. Officer Evans, I heard my voice say. Tight but level. Stay outside the cell. I stepped inside, eyes locked on the drawing, avoiding Peter's vacant stare. My hands felt clumsy, unlocking the supply closet down the tier, grabbing the small can of gray primer and a roller. What is it, Alan? Evans whispered as I returned, her voice hushed with naive curiosity. Ruler 1, I muttered, forcing myself back into the cell. The air inside felt colder, thicker. Peters hadn't moved, just watched, that faint, unsettling smile playing on his lips. My heart hammered against my ribs as I dipped the roller, the wet rasp of it against the paint tray sounding unnaturally loud. I started painting over the charcoal face, the gray paint swallowing the leering grin, the wide eyes erasing it. Fast, trying not to look at Peters, trying not to think about why. It took only a minute, but felt like an hour. When the gray rectangle was complete, hiding the grotesque caricature, I backed out, securing the cell door with shaking hands. The heavy locking sound echoed down the tier. Later that shift, Miller appeared beside me during rounds, seemingly out of nowhere. He nodded towards Peter's cell, saw the paint supplies we used. Any hesitation? No, sir. I lied. Good, he grunted. Hesitation is how you end up on the wall permanently. He walked on, leaving me with a fresh chill despite the block's stuffy air. Passing Peter's cell again near the end of shift, I couldn't help but look. The gray paint was drying. Flat and institutional, but under the harsh fluorescent light, a faint darkening remained where the charcoal had been thickest. A ghostly residue that seemed, if I stared too long, to still hold the barest outline of that horrifying, smiling face. A few uneasy days passed. I tried to establish a routine, helping Eleanor in the garden, taking walks, though never near the swamp edge and never after dusk. But the fear lingered, a constant low hum beneath the surface of things. Sleep was shallow, punctuated by dreams of dark water and grasping roots. Faces just beneath the murky surface. Sometimes, just as I was drifting off, or even during the quiet moments of the day, I'd hear it, a faint whisper, like dry leaves skittering on pavement, seeming to shape my name. Sarah. I'd whip my head around, heart pounding. Nothing, just the wind, or the house settling. Eleanor seemed more withdrawn than ever, spending hours staring out the window, her lips moving silently. One evening, Eleanor developed a harsh cough. Her breathing sounded ragged. The nearest pharmacy that might have the stronger cough syrup she needed was 20 miles away, but the little gas station Minimart at the edge of town sometimes carried it. It was well after 11 when I realized we were out. I'll run down there, I told her, ignoring the flicker of fear. It shouldn't take long. The drive felt longer than it should have. As I approached the edge of town, my stomach tightened. The gas station should have been dark, closed up tight hours ago. Instead, its fluorescent lights blazed with a harsh, flickering intensity, casting distorted shadows across the empty highway. The sign buzzed loudly, erratically. A lone figure stood silhouetted inside, unnaturally still, facing away from the window. Rule 2. The words screamed in my head. If the gas station stays open past midnight, don't enter. Don't enter! But there was a strange pull, a morbid curiosity mixed with a genuine need for the medicine. My foot eased off the accelerator. The air drifting through the open car window carried the usual smell of gasoline and hot asphalt. But underneath it, something else, cloyingly sweet, like overripe fruit left to rot in the sun, mixed with a faint, coppery tang. I could almost feel the buzzing lights on my skin. Just run in, grab the syrup, run out, I thought, my hand hovering over the door handle. Then the figure inside shifted slightly, a jerky, unnatural movement. That broke the spell. I slammed my foot back on the accelerator, tires squealing faintly on the hot pavement as I sped past. In the rearview mirror, just for a fraction of a second before the station disappeared around a bend, I thought I saw the figure turn towards the window, its face obscured by shadow, but the shape of it, wrong, elongated. I drove home empty-handed. The image burned into my mind. The whispers seemed louder that night. The next day, I cornered Mateo again at the diner. The gas station, I said, my voice trembling slightly. It was open last night. He went pale, slopping coffee as he refilled a mug. You didn't go in, did you? He asked, his voice urgent. No, I assured him. He visibly relaxed, wiping his brow. Good. God, Sarah, good. They say that place sits over an old sinkhole. Before the town, even. A bad place. Things come up sometimes. He lowered his voice. If you want real answers about this town, maybe check the old town hall records. Annex building, back room. But be careful. Brody doesn't like people digging. Later that evening, driving past the town hall, intending to scope it out, I saw Brody's cruiser parked nearby. He was inside his car, talking on his phone, window down. As I passed slowly, I caught a few words carried on the humid air. Keep to the schedule. Henderson is confirmed for this month's turn. My blood turned to ice. Turn. The world tilted. Henderson. Old Mr. Henderson, who lived 3 houses down, who always waved when he collected his mail. This month's turn. The overheard words echoed, mixing with the third rule, the coldest one. I spent the next day in a fog of anxiety, jumping at every sound, scrutinizing every neighbor's face for some sign. The humidity felt thicker, more suffocating than ever, pressing down like a physical weight. I was pulling weeds in Eleanor's front garden, the sun beating down relentlessly, sweat dripping into my eyes when I saw him. Mr. Henderson, shuffling down the sidewalk towards me. He looked diminished. His usual friendly demeanor was gone, replaced by a chilling vacancy in his eyes, like looking into dusty, empty rooms. He stopped right in front of me, his gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder. The air grew heavy, silent, save for the drone of a distant lawnmower. Then he spoke, his voice flat, devoid of inflection, scraped raw. It's your turn now. Just that. He didn't wait for a response. Didn't even seem to register my presence beyond delivering the message. He simply turned and shuffled back the way he came, leaving me frozen amidst the wilting petunias, the cloying scent of gardenias, suddenly sickening. Don't ask for what. The final rule, the absolute injunction, slammed into my consciousness. My breath came in ragged gasps. My turn? For what? Sacrifice? Possession? Something worse? I scrambled inside, slamming the door, leaning against it, shaking. Eleanor was in her armchair, watching me with those clouded, knowing eyes. Mr. Henderson, just... I choked out the words. He said, it's my turn. Eleanor flinched, her hands knotting in her lap. Oh, Sarah, she whispered, looking away. Poor old Al Henderson. His mind's been going lately. Doesn't know what he's saying. But her voice trembled. There was no conviction in it, only a deep, rattling fear she couldn't quite conceal. She knew what it meant. Later, desperation clawing at me, I called Mateo, my voice cracking. Mateo! He said it. Henderson. He told me it's my turn. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Then a long silence. Oh God. Sarah, he finally whispered, his voice tight with terror. Listen to me. I don't know much. Nobody does. But people whose turn it is. Sometimes they head towards the old Miller place. Edge of the swamp. Please, Sarah. Just leave town. Now. Before I could reply, the line clicked dead. The next day, Sheriff Brody's cruiser seemed to be everywhere I looked, parked down the street, following me at a distance when I drove to the grocery store. He stopped me as I was walking back from the mailbox. Everything all right, Miss Jenkins? He asked, leaning out his window, the same placid smile firmly in place, but his eyes were hard, assessing. Heard old Al Henderson was talking nonsense yesterday. Hope he didn't upset you. It wasn't a question. It was a warning layered over a threat. Best to respect local ways, he added, his voice dropping slightly. Especially near the swamp. Gets dangerous after dark. He drove off, leaving me feeling watched, trapped. The net tightening around me. That night, unable to sleep, heart pounding with a dreadful certainty. I searched Eleanor's room while she dozed fitfully, tucked away in the back of her closet, beneath a pile of mothballed blankets. I found a small, locked wooden box. I managed to pry it open with a nail file. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, were bundles of dried herbs I didn't recognize, several small, brittle pieces of parchment covered in strange, spidery symbols, and a silver locket. I clicked it open. On one side, a faded photograph of a much younger Eleanor. On the other, a stern-looking man in an older sheriff's uniform. Sheriff Brody's father. Waiting wasn't an option. Waiting meant becoming another faded newspaper clipping. Another whispered story Mateo wouldn't quite finish. Waiting meant letting the suffocating dread of Cypress Creek swallow me whole. Mateo's terrified whisper about the Miller place echoed in my mind, mingling with the image of the locket. Eleanor and Brody's father, bound together in the town's dark history, while Eleanor slept her restless, murmuring sleep. I went back to the wooden box. My fingers closed around a bundle of dried, pungent herbs. Rosemary, maybe something else, sharp and resinous. I shoved it into my pocket. I grabbed one of the brittle parchments, the spidery symbols seeming to writhe in the dim light, and tucked it into my waistband. A heavy-duty flashlight from the kitchen drawer felt pitifully inadequate, but it was something. Outside, the night air was unnaturally still. The usual chorus of frogs and insects muted, replaced by a low expectant hum that seemed to vibrate up through the soles of my sneakers. Stars were swallowed by a gathering haze that wasn't quite fog, wasn't quite cloud. As I cut across overgrown backyards towards the swamp edge, the air grew colder, smelling rankly of decay and stagnant water. The Miller place loomed ahead, a skeletal silhouette against the darkening sky. Windows like vacant eyes, porch sagging like a broken jaw. The path leading up to it was barely visible, choked with weeds and grasping vines. I had just reached the crumbling property line marked by a listing fence post, when a figure stepped out from the deep shadow beneath a massive cypress tree. My heart leaped into my throat. Sheriff Brody. Sheriff Brody. The friendly mask was gone entirely now, leaving his face hard, impassive stone in the gloom. Going somewhere, Miss Jenkins. His voice was quiet, devoid its earlier feigned warmth. It held the chilling finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. What do you want? I managed, my voice shaking despite myself. The flashlight beam trembled in my hand. Just ensuring local traditions are upheld, he said, taking a slow step towards me. This town, it has an agreement, an understanding with the land, with what lies in the land. The Cypress Shade, some call it. He gestured vaguely towards the swamp. It requires balance, acknowledgement. A small price paid regularly ensures it stays mostly contained. Protects the rest of us. A price? I whispered, already knowing the answer. Sacrifice? That's what the turn is? He gave a curt nod. Someone has to take the turn. Keeps the shade focused, appeased. My family, we've overseen the selection for generations. We ensure the balance holds. His eyes locked onto mine, cold and resolute. Outsiders, troublemakers, people who don't belong, who might disrupt things. They often find it's their turn. You've been asking too many questions, Miss Jenkins, stirring things up. It's your turn now, and I'm here to make sure you see it through. He started walking towards me purposefully. Panic exploded within me. A dense, chilling fog, smelling of mud and something else, something metallic and foul. rolled in from the swamp with unnatural speed, swallowing the landscape, swallowing the path back. Whispers erupted all around me, no longer faint, but a sibilant chorus, slithering through the fog, clawing at my sanity. Stay! Join us! It's time. The ground beneath my feet felt suddenly soft, yielding, trying to suck me down. Brody lunged, grabbing my arm. His grip was like iron. Don't fight it. It's easier if you don't fight. I screamed, wrenching free, adrenaline surging. I scrambled towards the dark bulk of the Miller house, hoping for shelter, any kind of barrier. The fog swirled, disorienting me. Shapes moved in the periphery, tall, thin, bending like reeds in a wind that didn't exist. Brody was right behind me, his footsteps heavy, relentless. I half fell through the rotting porch steps, catching myself on the doorframe, splintered wood digging into my palm. Inside, the air was stagnant, thick with dust and the smell of mildew and rats. Moonlight filtered weakly through grimy windows, illuminating decaying furniture draped in cobwebs like burial shrouds. The whispers followed me inside, echoing in the cavernous rooms. Give her to us. Sheriff. Time. Brody entered, silhouetted against the swirling fog outside. Nowhere to run, girl. I backed away, deeper into the house, flashlight beam dancing frantically. A floorboard groaned under my foot. I remembered the herbs in my pocket, pulling them out. The sharp, resinous scent filled the air. I crushed them in my fist, thrusting them towards Brody and the oppressive presence I felt gathering behind him. For a moment, the whispers seemed to falter, recoil. The fog swirled violently, thinning slightly around me. Brody grunted, shielding his eyes as if from a bright light. I used the momentary distraction, ducking into what might have been a dining room. A large, overturned table offered cover. I crouched behind it, heart pounding, listening. Brody's heavy footsteps approached, slower now, cautious. Outside, a low, guttural moan rose from the swamp, vibrating through the decaying wood of the house. Then, from somewhere outside, back towards the town, a shout. Sheriff! Brody! What the hell is going on? Mateo's voice, thin with terror but clear. Brody cursed under his breath. Damn kid. He hesitated, momentarily distracted, seizing the chance. I pulled out the parchment, the strange symbols seeming to pulse faintly in the dim light. Holding it up like a shield, I scrambled out from behind the table and sprinted towards the back of the house, towards where I hoped there was another exit. Brody turned back, spotting me, his face contorted in rage. You won't escape. I burst through a rotting back door, stumbling out into what was once a garden, now a tangle of weeds and encroaching swamp. The fog was thicker here, the whispers more insistent. Roots snaked across the ground like petrified tentacles. I could hear Brody crashing through the undergrowth behind me. I risked a glance back. He was closer, his face grim. But behind him, the fog swirled into something denser, taller. A vaguely humanoid shape composed of shadow and swirling mist, indistinct yet undeniably present. The Cypress shade itself, drawn by the conflict, by the broken pact, it seemed to be watching, waiting, or perhaps judging. I pushed myself harder, plunging deeper into the swampy edge of the property, the soggy ground sucking at my shoes, praying the entity was focused on Brody, the failed keeper of its bargain. I don't know how long I ran, fueled by pure terror, crashing through grasping branches and sucking mud. Behind me, back in the swirling fog near the Miller house, I thought I heard a strangled scream, abruptly cut off, followed by a deep, resonant sigh that seemed to ripple through the very air. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just kept pushing forward, following the faintest lightning in the sky to the east, until suddenly, I stumbled out of the tree line onto the dew-soaked grass of someone's backyard. gasping for breath, shaking uncontrollably. The first rays of dawn were painting the sky in bruised shades of pink and gray. The thick fog was receding, thinning into harmless morning mist. The oppressive weight in the air had lessened. The chorus of whispers faded back into the rustling leaves and the chirping of early birds. It was as if the night's horrors had simply evaporated with the daylight, but they hadn't. They were etched onto my skin in the form of scratches and bruises, caked onto my clothes as mud and swamp grime, and seared into my mind with terrifying clarity. Brody's face, stripped of its mask. The shape in the fog, Henderson's empty eyes. The rules. My legs felt like lead as I stumbled through the quiet streets back towards Eleanor's house. Windows remained dark, curtains drawn tight. No one was out. It felt less like a sleeping town and more like a town holding its breath, waiting. Did they know? Did they hear the scream? Or was it just another disturbance swallowed by the swamp? Another turn completed, another price paid. My key scraped in the lock. Inside, the house was unnaturally quiet. Eleanor sat in her armchair, exactly where I'd left her. A half-knitted shawl pooled in her lap. She looked up as I entered, her gaze sweeping over my disheveled state. There was no surprise in her eyes, no question, just a deep, weary sadness. And perhaps something that might have been relief. Relief I was back, or relief that Brody wasn't. I couldn't tell. She simply nodded slowly. You should get cleaned up, Sarah, she murmured, her voice thin as paper. The house, once a potential refuge, now felt like a beautifully maintained cage. Every shadow seemed too deep. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a footstep. I kept thinking about Mateo. His terrified shout had bought me precious seconds. Where was he? Did Brody, or something else, find him? The uncertainty was a heavy stone in my gut. The silence from the rest of the town was deafening, thick with unspoken knowledge, shared complicity. The rules hadn't vanished with the dawn. They were woven into the very fabric of Cypress Creek, permanent and unyielding, waiting for the next cycle, the next turn. Standing under the weak spray of the shower, scrubbing away the mud and grime, I knew I couldn't stay. Cleaning the swamp off my skin wouldn't clean the town out of my soul. Staying meant accepting the silence, accepting the rules, accepting the possibility that one day, my own eyes might become as vacant as Henderson's. My own voice used to deliver that chilling pronouncement. Staying meant becoming Eleanor, trapped by the past, complicit through fear. I wouldn't do it. The decision settled over me, cold and hard and definite. I packed quickly, efficiently, shoving clothes into my old duffel bag, needing only what I could carry. Escape felt urgent, immediate. I found Eleanor in the living room, staring out at the too green lawn. I stopped in front of her, bag slung over my shoulder. I'm leaving, Grandma. She didn't look surprised. She simply turned her clouded eyes towards me. I understand, she whispered. There were tears gathering, but whether from sadness for my departure or fear for my future, I couldn't say. You were never meant for this place, Sarah. Some roots, they take hold whether you want them to or not. She reached out, her thin, cool fingers brushing my arm. But be careful, she added, her voice dropping, taking on a strange, resonant quality I hadn't heard before. Breaking the cycle, it leaves ripples. The swamp remembers. It sounded less like a warning, more like an ancient curse. I didn't hug her goodbye. I couldn't. I walked out the front door and didn't look back. Getting into my car felt like breaking out of prison. The engine turning over was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. I drove slowly at first, expecting Brody's cruiser to appear at every intersection, expecting hands to reach out from the shadows between houses. Every familiar landmark seemed menacing now. The diner, the town hall, the turnoff towards the gas station. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The miles crawled by. Then I saw it. The sign. Weather-beaten. Vine-choked. You are now leaving Cypress Creek. Y'all come back now. I pressed down hard on the accelerator, the tires kicking up gravel as I sped past it, crossing the invisible line. A wave of relief so profound it was almost painful washed over me. Tears streamed down my face. Tears of fear, exhaustion, and the sheer giddy joy of escape. I drove for hours, not stopping until Cypress Creek was 100 miles behind me. Weeks later, I was in a different city, a different state. Anonymous streets, anonymous faces. I found a small apartment, started looking for work, tried to piece together a semblance of a normal life. I avoided swamps, ignored local news, flinched whenever I saw an old sedan. I told myself I was free, that the rules didn't apply here, that the humidity was just weather, the whispers just the wind. Then one evening my phone rang, an unknown number, Florida area code. My blood ran cold. My blood ran cold? Against all reason, against every screaming instinct, I answered it. Silence at first, just faint static, like distant cicadas or dry leaves skittering on pavement. Then, a voice, low, raspy, chillingly familiar. It could have been Henderson, could have been Brody, could have been something much older. Did you really think it was over? It whispered through the static. It's always someone's turn. So, you made it to the end. You followed the rules. You survived. But Cypress Creek doesn't forget. It never lets go. And its rules, they spread. If a strange car appears outside your home tonight, if a stranger tells you it's your turn, don't say you were warned. Leave a comment if the ending caught you off guard. Subscribe for more stories where the rules are never just suggestions. And remember, break the rules and the story follows you home.